Hey guys, Josie here with Emotional Wisdom, and today, actually for the following videos, I'm going to be sharing my personal experience through this global crisis that we're experiencing. I think that it's extremely fascinating for me to observe myself, someone that has done inner work, deep layers of inner work, to also be experiencing some sort of fear from all of this. For those of you who are undergoing fear, be kind to yourself. Don't be upset. Don't be annoyed that you're actually undergoing fear, because a part of you is not allowing the other part to actually express and vent and receive validation from the person that matters the most, which is yourself. So I am going to do a little twist here. While all of the spiritual community or self-help community or just therapists and so forth may advise to not panic or to not fear. I mean, I don't want you to panic, but to not fear or make it feel like a negative thing that you're fearing. I'm actually going to invite you to essentially do the polar opposite. Instead of denying the fear, go into the fear so you can obtain control of the very thing you feel you have zero control of. So, the way that I'm going to invite you to address your emotions is going to be in the manner in which I addressed my fear when it arose. And I was not shaming my fear. I was not trying to deny my fear. I wanted it to come forth so I can understand what thought patterns, what belief systems, what experiences I'm still held bonded to that are still governing me, and basically release myself from those. So what I'm saying here is that moments like these, crisis that we can't run away from, we can't. This is a global thing. This is like the most biggest dramatic events that we could essentially be experiencing, considering it's a global thing. It's almost like the perfect storm for us to self-reflect, to understand what we're self-identified with, what we deem that gives us value and makes us worthy, and so forth. Going back to my storytelling, before we had the emergency announcement of the severity of the matter, I wasn't afraid. I was hearing in the news everything that we were undergoing, because, Italy, Spain, China, Korea, all those UK, all those affected areas, they are us as well. We are all one. So as we were undergoing this, I knew that this was a devastating moment, but at the same token, it wasn't really in my face for me to feel the emotions that I started to feel thereafter once our president declared state of emergency. The moment that I realized that I was starting to become fearful was when I realized that Spain announced their state of emergency, basically mandatory lockdown. No one is to go outside. And I have a dear friend that resides out there, that moved out there. So having a dear friend who I've known since I was 12 practically witness this, it's almost as if I was witnessing this. So the moment that I saw her post, I immediately felt overwhelmed with emotion. Thankfully, my significant other was present, and he was able to provide the presence that I require for me to continue to blossom and thrive as a species, I feel, as a human. As I was witnessing or reading her post, I was witnessing my emotional body start going through fear. I started thinking of my own personal fears. Some of them being, wow, our economic sector is going to be severely devastated, severely hurt, and that's going to affect me. And I started to then think about 2007, 2006, 2007, when we were affected. I am a real estate agent. I was self-employed, did it full time. So I really got hit with that crisis. Not to mention simultaneously witnessing my mom sick. So as I was trying to build my business in the insurance industry and fixed investments, I was able to get back on my feet. I ended up getting a second job to basically build the financial distress I was undergoing, to basically get out of that. In 2009, my mom then was diagnosed with cancer, stage 4 breast cancer. And as I was trying to get back on my feet and then witnessing my mother undergo, be diagnosed with breast cancer and see her health just get worse as each month passed, it really shook my foundation on a level that I never would have imagined. Imagine a human being already stressing out because their financial situation is in crisis. And on top of that, one of your parents, in this case my mother, was level 4 breast cancer. When I think of level 4 breast cancer, my mind immediately would think, oh God, I could potentially lose her. However, there was an interesting observation because a part of me felt that there would be no way that I would lose her. I genuinely thought that, yes, I can lose her. That was my first thought. But the second thought was, no, that's not going to be my mom. She's too close to God. She's too devoted. She's prayed all her life. In fact, we would do the rosary every day when we were little. So I felt she was protected. I felt there was no way that God was going to do this. In fact, I felt she would be a testimonial. So trying to build my financial situation and basically create structure or more foundation, I simultaneously was worrying about my mom, but didn't really want to think about my mom's crisis. I was worrying, but I wanted to push it away because there was no room for me to think of the worst case scenario, as well as my financial situation. I was trying to just get it more solid, get it more stable. Well, she did end up passing a year later, October 30th, 2010, which destroyed me. So why am I sharing this story? Because as I said earlier, I was being flooded once I read the post of, oh my God, this is going to happen to us. We are going to also have that mandatory lockdown. We're also going to declare a state of emergency. Holy moly, what does that mean for my finances? What does that mean for my health? And what's sad is I first thought about my finances instead of my health. So I sat there and I thought, wow, how many people are thinking the very same thing? How am I going to make ends meet before they think of their health? Broke my heart, actually, to witness my thought patterns. So, as I was then feeling oh God, my health, I immediately thought about my mom and her and what she was undergoing. When we took her to Mexico to go get alternative healing, more in the natural side of things, holistic, if you will, she passed out there. We ended up taking her to the doctors twice before she passed. And I was also simultaneously worried. Imagine someone who is already devastated that their mom is only getting worse by the day. And on top of that has to worry about, wow, what kind of financial burden am I building here too? Going into the hospital, that bill, the expenses are going to increase and rise. So as I was there with my significant other, remembering, reliving this memory of me fearing my mom's health and fearing that we could potentially lose her, the uncertainty, if you will, fearing the expenses that were attached to us going into the emergency room and getting and receiving treatment. I then expressed to my significant other that I needed to cry, that I was genuinely afraid of what was happening in our country, in the world. And thankfully he held space. I then knew that I had to go into my fear. First of all, I was feeling the fear. I allowed myself to express in whatever way I needed to, which was for me, when I felt the fear, I felt the need to hold my significant other and to allow myself to be witnessed, allow myself to react in whatever manner I felt was a form of release, which was crying for me. And I knew I needed to go into my fear even deeper, not just allow myself to cry, allow myself to accept that there was a crisis, that there is a crisis currently right now, and that this crisis is triggering me because of what I experienced in my past. So I knew I have to go into this fear. So as I started embodying more of this fear, I also noticed small headache, but it just started getting more intense. So as I was going into my emotional body, feeling the sensations, I was continuing to remember my childhood. I took it back all the way to my childhood. And I was remembering, and mind you, as I was remembering all of this, my headache was getting more intense. And I knew, okay, I have a headache because I'm nervous or I'm scared. But I didn't understand the level of when my headache comes in and how there's more to what our bodies do. So as I was remembering childhood experiences that energetically felt the same way as what I was experiencing currently in real time, I remembered when my dad would come home just very nervous, very anxious. Money always seemed to be, scarce. But my dad knew how to save. He always needed to save. He would always hoard his money for unforeseen events. And what's crazy is that he would attract unforeseen events. My siblings, especially my sister and I, things would happen to us where we would end up going to the hospital, to the emergency room, in fact, and get, assistance. And my dad, because he would save, he was able to pay cash and bail us out in situations like these. And of course, it only makes sense for him to be traumatized in a sense and fear that anything can transpire, and it's important for him to have money saved and we can't spend because there's always going to be unforeseen events. So that's a thought pattern that I was inherited. In addition to, my mom was always sick. She was always sick, always wearing. I was literally seeing images of my mom wearing bandana in her head, creating pressure for the relief that her headache needed. And then I remembered asking my mother, Mom, why do you have a bandana wrapped around your head? She expressed that it was because she suffers deep headaches. And then from there, I learned that she suffered from anxiety and from fear. She always was in fear, always suffered anxiety. And that's another thing I learned was money. You always need to have money for emergencies available. And if you don't have enough money, there is a danger. And then attached to that belief also was there's going to be someone sick, or there could be someone suffering ailments or health issues. So that's why we need to save. That's why money, we need to have money at hand for moments like this to protect ourselves from being in a bind where someone's sick and we can't take them to the hospital and give them the proper treatment. So to sum it up, money being scarce, unforeseen events, landing in the hospital, my mom always being sick, suffering headaches. They were due to her anxiety level, her feeling super fearful of life. That was what I was taught. And not to mention it was inherited in me to feel such way. And not to mention that I'm already very sensitized. I feel things on a more deeper scale, considering that I am a clairsentient. I feel energy. Someone doesn't essentially have to express what they're feeling. I can already feel it and know that there's a problem. So imagine the overload of fear, of uncertainty, of pain, of doubt that I was exposed to. So as I was remembering this, saying, holy moly, and thinking of my previous headaches that were random, they were not random, actually. I learned that my body was already trained to release a message to my brain, create a headache, because it was a threat. So what was fascinating is I realized I didn't necessarily have to be conscious of my fear or whatever I was stressing about. This could be subconscious. If the body felt in any way, shape, or form the emotions, it immediately released a headache. I immediately would experience a headache. So I then said, wow, this is precisely what I teach. How when we do not go into our bodies and also create the healing that it needs, our emotion / body, somatic aspect, then we're going to still be stuck. We're still going to be stuck repeating the same pattern that we witnessed when we were little. So what I learned going into my emotional body, going into my fear, and into my headache, and allowing it to embody me, was that I essentially didn't have to be conscious of a fear that I was about to feel, or me undergoing a fear at the moment, or anxiety for me to trigger a headache. But rather, my body, if my body, any way, shape, or form, felt a sense of threat, it immediately would trigger a headache. So that's fascinating for me to unveil, that I didn't have to essentially be conscious. It is my subconscious that's steering the wheel with my body. And if my body with my subconscious playing together detected that there's potential fear or danger or anxiety in the moment or in the future, in the near future, it immediately would trigger a headache. So what was really interesting is the moment that I really was able to piece the puzzle together, come into that aha moment. Because I would ask myself, why do I randomly have headaches out of nowhere? So when this information was revealed to me, and I literally started experiencing my headache decrease. It literally was minimizing. It was lessening until it finally went away. I was in awe. When I finally came around to tell my significant other about my findings and how my actual headache went away, because I understood the root and the origin of why I would trigger these headaches out of nowhere. Out of nowhere. I mean, I understand when you don't eat, when you lack of water. So, once I was telling my significant other about my findings, literally, his wallet was sitting on my counter, and there was apparently change on top of his wallet. That change fell from the top of his wallet to the coffee table. And we both looked at each other, and it literally made a sound effect of ding. And I was like, I looked at him, and I literally started saying ding, ding, ding. Like that's the confirmation that I needed to understand furthermore about where I have energy still stuck in me. It being in fears of my foundation just crumbling down, and me needing to witness that and be present in my body through that process. I realized before, and I wanted to do it again, but I was able to nip it in the bud and know that I wanted to repeat a pattern that was no longer serving me. But in the past, anytime I would feel like my foundation was going to fall apart, meaning I was experiencing something extremely heavy, where I would be forced to feel extremely uncomfortable and powerless, that I would want to leave my body. And when I say leave my body, almost like not be in my body, literally not be present with me, because I had zero desire to experience something super dramatic and profound as I used to experience them when I was little. So now I'm fully understanding mind, body, and essence and spirit, fully understanding to integrate all, to genuinely integrate, not just do the mind work and give it a new definition, because the body is still going to be trapped. The emotions are still going to be trapped in the body. But to process them, all components, process them together, so we can, from the root, heal it, transmute the energy into something more, into real time, first and foremost, the energy that's trapped, and give the body a different memory. So, as I was with my significant other, conveying this information, and as I was still being present with myself, I was feeling a sense of relief. I no longer was fearful in the level that I was. In fact, the following morning, I woke up feeling an immense amount of peace. Literally, I felt supported. I literally felt everything was going to be okay. Mind you, the sense of peace that I was experiencing wasn't because I was trying to convince myself. It was because genuinely, the body received a different memory as I was present with myself, as I was releasing, as I was transmuting, as I was bringing stuck energy into real time and being witnessed through the process and feeling safe as I was processing this. Super important. And feeling safe. The body is receiving a different memory. The body is registering that it is safe, that I don't have to feel like I need to exit my body to feel safe. I don't have to feel like I want to sleep for many hours, because that was one of my coping mechanisms. So I don't face the pain of reality that I was living in, but rather want to be present. So, key thing here, moral of this all, of what I'm mentioning, of the story, is that you have to go back into the very emotion that you're fearing. You have to go back into that fear, into that anxiety, whatever it is you're feeling in these moments of crisis. Because everything has really turned into a mirror for us of what we genuinely feel afraid of. So I invite you to go into yourself. This fear, this anxiety, this loss of control that you're experiencing. Start asking it questions. Sit in it. First, sit in it. Embody whatever it is you're feeling. In the beginning, you're going to feel very uncomfortable. You're going to want to push it away because that's what you're used to doing. That is what I was used to doing. I still, like I said, find myself, for example, this scenario, fear, wanting to push it away, want to occupy my mind. But I learned no. Only doing that is only going to make the situation more uncomfortable as each day goes by. So, by you embodying whatever sensation you're experiencing, for example, the fear of what's happening right now, really sit with it and wait to see what it reveals to you. In other words, feel the energy and then see if this energy is similar to experiences that you've encountered in the past. In fact, you might not even need to ask it. You're just going to remember incidences that resemble the same energy, the same sensations in your body. And you're going to learn that you're still carrying that over. I'm not saying that this crisis, this global epidemic that we're experiencing is not something to fear. We're always going to have fear. But what you'll realize is that the more you address what's happening in your past, because what I was really essentially fearing from this epidemic was a sense of not knowing what's going to happen next, yes. There was that sense of the unknown, but most importantly, I didn't want to experience or re-experience something that traumatized me in the past. So it was the threat of, I'm noticing here that I'm going to experience the same sensations that broke me in the past. And that in and of itself is going to create that much more of an anxiety. So it really is all the momentum that you're carrying from your past that's manifesting in the future, in the present. I repeat, it really is all the momentum that you are carrying from the past that is manifesting right now, in your time, in real time. So it is your opportunity to really dive deep into yourself with zero judgment, just being present with it. And if someone's there with you, even better. Even better. In fact, I encourage you to have someone you trust to be present with you when you do this, so you can feel held or witnessed, and ask and go into it and see how this energy that you're experiencing in real time has mirrored experiences of your past. Go into that scavenger hunt. And what you'll know is that you won't actually need to search yourself in the past. You'll notice that just by you sitting in that sensation, immediately you're going to remember. You're going to have a thought. You're going to have an image of something that reminds you of the energy that you're experiencing right now, of chaos or of fear or of anxiety. This was my interesting revelation of what's happening in these moments of uncertainty. And as I continue, because it is not a one-time thing, as I continue to sit with myself, like I said, I feel more secure. Like everything's going to be okay, even though we don't know what's happening or what's going to happen in 1 month. But that's the most fascinating factor, is that you're going to actually embody that safety. And that's us being in control. Us knowing that we're always in control of how we feel. Authentically, though. Not just trying to run from the fear and say, I'm not fearful, I'm not afraid. Take your power back by going into that fear and understanding where this momentum of fear really generated. And I promise you that you're going to feel a sense of relief and a sense of everything's going to be all right. A genuine one, not one of trying to convince yourself. Because here's the problem. If you try to convince yourself in something that you really don't believe, that your subconscious really is not believing, that your emotional body, your somatic body is not believing, you're only going to meet with disappointment. You're only going to literally come crashing down, and your foundation is going to fall apart, and it's going to feel way more painful than just being with your emotion of fear or anxiety. So if this is you and you're undergoing major fear and anxiety with what we're experiencing in today's times, hesitate not and contact me for a free 30-minute session. I am more than happy to be present here for you. Shine some light in your core fears. So what we are currently experiencing today won't be as frightening as you are currently experiencing it. With full acceptance and all the love, Josie.